We heard from President Biden in the South Court Auditorium at the Eisenhower Executive Office building this morning. Some by now familiar jabs against what he calls ultra-MAGA Republicans, saying that they would propose to end Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, as well as raising taxes on millions of Americans, when in fact this is only the proposal of one Republican lawmaker, Senator Rick Scott, Republican of Florida, who responded to the president's attacks by suggesting that Mr. Biden is, quote, unwell and should resign. When that was brought to the president's attention today, he said of Senator Scott, "I think the man has a problem." These remarks touting the success of job creation, the unemployment rate, all meant to also to get ahead not only of the midterm elections messaging, but of tomorrow's release of the CPI report, the best measure of inflation in this country. It is forecast to come in around 8.1% inflation increase over last year. That would be a deceleration from the 8.5% we have been seeing, but still close to 40-year highs. At one point today, a reporter asked President Biden directly why so many Americans believe he and his administration are not doing enough to combat inflation, and whether he and his administration bear responsibility for the current state of inflation.
First is we're in power. That's the first thing. And you justifiably right, we control all three branches of the government. Well, we don't really. We have 50-50 in the Senate. You need 60 votes to get major things done. I've been pushing the things I've been proposing here, you've heard me speak to today since I got in office. And I need to get 60 votes to be able to even pass them, number one. Number two, I think that, you know, they're not focused. All they're focused on, understandably, is the problem they're facing. They get a 5.5% raise, an average raise in their salaries, and yet inflation exceeds that. And they look around the world, and they know that a lot of it's extremely complicated. And so they're frustrated, and I don't blame them.
But increasingly, the American people, according to public polling data, are blaming President Biden for the state of the economy. The latest polls conducted by all the major organizations, which are then averaged into a compilation by RealClearPolitics.com, show that on average, 37% of Americans give President Biden a passing grade on the economy. 59.1% do not. That is underwater by 22 points. And it's the same if you look at the individual polls that they're averaging at RealClearPolitics.com. The latest Politico poll, taken just a few days ago, shows only 34% of Americans crediting the job the president is doing on the economy. CNN, 35%. Those are the numbers that alarm the White House most, along with those inflation numbers. Bob and Katrina.
All right, James, thank you very much. And joining us for a reaction, President of Zuma Global and financial analyst Heather Zumarraga. Heather, what do you blame the inflation on?
Well, I blame inflation on reckless spending policies coming out of the Biden administration. But if you ask the administration, we just heard it in his economic speech today, it's the Putin price hike. It's the Federal Reserve not raising rates. It's oil companies not drilling enough when they have tough regulation and restrictions against them not to do so. They don't have any incentive at this point in time. I mean, the most shocking remarks on higher gas prices, as today gas prices reaching a record high for everyday Americans, diesel at $6.50. But Biden said 2 weeks ago, this is a quote, "We're just getting started. I look at this as a serious problem, but an enormous opportunity." He's admitting it. He's admitting that the administration's goal is to increase gas prices. Higher gas prices are not a policy mistake. It's intentional to further their climate initiatives, and Republicans know that.
Now, a new SSRS and CNN poll that James Rosen also mentioned asked Americans, with respect to the economy, do you think Joe Biden's policies have improved conditions, worsened conditions, or had no effect? Check out these numbers. 19% said improved. 55% said worsened. 55%. 26% said no effect. Now, of course, take a listen to President Biden, of course, to taking on how much time he's taking to tackling inflation as well. And then I do want to get your reaction on the numbers and his response, Heather.
I have conversations almost every day. Well, that's an exaggeration. At least twice a week with one of my European counterparts, heads of state, on how can we help them, in fact, wean themselves off of Russian oil.
Yeah, lots of information coming from the administration. But of course, what's the real story here, Heather?
How can we help them? Well, I have a solution. Drilling. Turn back on U.S. oil and gas drilling in the United States. Prior to this administration under Trump, as you know, we were a U.S. net exporter of oil. I mean, I'm all in favor of cleaner climate change. Even Elon Musk, who invented the electric vehicle battery, said he thinks it needs to happen over time. You can't just turn on a light switch. It's a process that could take many, many years. It doesn't happen overnight. So that's a big problem for the administration. They need to encourage oil and gas companies to drill more, not punish them.
Yeah, I've talked to analysts about oil, and it takes many years, maybe up to 15 years from the beginning of the effort of the endeavor to drill oil somewhere to actually get it out, get it where it needs to go. And that's billions of dollars of investment. And when you have a president that's shutting down things and trying to make it difficult for the other, they just said, well, it's not worth our while financially to go that route. So that's part of it. Another thing that we're seeing interest rates go up. I wondered, Heather, whether you think what I think is that the Fed has been one of the culprits in this whole thing, too. Interest rates too low, too long. Buying debt they shouldn't have been buying. The Congress giving away money we don't have. We have to borrow from China anyway, just to get it out there in the economy. And you could argue maybe when the pandemic first happened, maybe one wave. But it kept going, all this free money, then $2 trillion of infrastructure. You know, is it really a mystery where this is coming from?
No, it's not. It's a mystery, I guess, to the White House. And I agree the Fed is one part of the problem. And even Biden alluded to that. I will agree that the Federal Reserve is and needs to continue raising interest rates. But what initially made the markets move into correction territory, we're essentially in a bear market right now, is when the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, took 75 basis point hike off the table. When he said we're only going to increase 0.5%, which is 50 basis points at a time, the markets didn't like that. They want the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates faster than they are to tamper some of this inflation. But you know what? I think what you said last is really the main issue. The textbook definition of inflation, too much money chasing too few goods. And you said the administration is spending. It's the $1.9 trillion spending stimulus plan passed in February or March of 2021. If you look at a chart of inflation, it skyrocketed right after that. So it's no mystery that that contributed to what we're seeing today at 8.5% as measured by the CPI.
Yeah, and if it comes out tomorrow still around 8.1, whatever it might be, and you've got interest rates generally at 3%, that's going to keep going. I mean, those need to get more in line, and they keep so.
Right. It's a big, big problem. The Fed has to play catch up. And so I think 75 basis points at a time, a hike, getting us back to normal in line with inflation data is what the stock market wants to hear. And Wall Street might head higher if they are more quick to raise interest rates.
But of course, that could lead to a recession. It's going to be higher mortgage rates, higher car payments.
That's the right thing to do.
I know. Which should have been done before, or we wouldn't be in this position.
You're right. Too little, too late.
That's right.
Indeed. Heather Zumarraga, thanks so much.